Aloha, everyone. Welcome to our second Ready, Set, Go Wildfire Preparedness webinar of the season. We had our first one a couple weeks ago. We are so thankful that each of you are here. It's really inspiring to see that almost 100 people registered for tonight's, and that's being after work hours and on your own time. So we really appreciate you being here. Especially to learn what we can all do to better prepare our families, our homes, and our neighborhoods for fire. My name is Nani Barretto, and I am with Hawai'i Wildfire Management Organization, also known as HWMO. And I would like to quickly introduce the rest of my team who will be leading today's webinar. We have presenting tonight Ashley Bear, Cassandra Smith, and Harriet Parsons. And then behind the scenes, we also have Dana Aina, who will be monitoring our Q&A, and Devin, who is helping to manage the tech in the back end. A few quick housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded and will be made publicly available after today. Please do use that Q&A box in your Zoom toolbar if you have any questions. You don't have access to the chat box, but do know where it is because our team will drop resources there throughout the session. And closed captions are available. You just have to turn those on if needed. A little background on who we are, Hawai'i Wildfire. We are a nonprofit founded in 2000. We serve communities and practitioners statewide and even across the Western Pacific, really serving as the region's primary hub for everything wildfire related, minus the suppression side of things. So that includes things like wildfire preparedness information and outreach, fire planning, risk reduction, mitigation, fire science communication, and multi-partner collaboration and facilitation. We do this work with and on behalf of everybody here today, including our county and our state fire and forestry agencies and community leaders, so that together, really, we can all work towards a future that's more wildfire ready. A few takeaways. This is what we're hoping you leave here today with. First, Hawaii is a very fire-prone state, just like many other fire-prone states on the continent. And these risks are increasing. Second, everyone here has a kuleana, keeping our homes and our landscapes protected from fire. It's going to take all of us, neighbors, agencies, and communities working together. Three, preparedness, we believe, is super powerful. There's so much we can do ahead of time, both individually and collectively, to reduce our risks. We really want firefighting to be the very last line of defense. And finally, you're not alone. Hawai'i Wildfire, we have lots of programs, resources, mitigation specialists that are ready to support you. So please, if you need help, if you need ideas or just someone to think things through with, please reach out. That's what we're here for. One of those resources is the Hawaii-specific Ready, Set, Go handbook. Ready, Set, Go itself is a national wildfire preparedness program that was created by the International Association of Fire Chiefs. Its goal is to help residents and the fire service so that they can help us take those proactive steps that are needed before, during, and after a wildfire. That's the national one. And then we at Hawai'i Wildfire, we adapted that handbook so that it better reflects our Hawaii context. That means we sort of took the core concepts and tailored them specifically for our landscapes and our homes and our people. So what you see there on the right-hand side, that's the handbook. It's about 20 pages long, and that serves as sort of the go-to resource that we and our fire departments make available to the general public, so that we can all learn how to get ready, how to get set, and how to go early during a wildfire event. And now we've sort of taken that printed handbook and transformed it into this webinar format, which we'll be walking through with you today. So whether you're brand new to fire preparedness or looking to deepen your knowledge, you're in the right spot.
Okay.
I'm going to hand it over to Ashley to give us some foundational information.
All right, thanks, Nani. Yeah, so we want to start off with that foundational point that Hawaii is a fire-prone state. The 2023 wildland urban fires were the result of long-term trends in fires in Hawaii, and those trends are still ongoing. As a percentage of land area, we burn as much as the fire-prone Western US on average, and the causes and conditions that led to that have to do with three things: climate, vegetation, and ignitions. So we have increasing population and increasing ignitions by people. As a result, 99% of wildfire ignitions in Hawaii are caused by people. We have heavy rains that are followed increasingly by drought periods, which spurs the growth of and then dries out the non-native fire-prone vegetation that's been expanding for decades across unmanaged lands. And we have a large percentage of buildings that lie in the wildland urban interface. And this includes both the older pre-modern codes built homes as well as more modern builds, which as we saw most recently in LA, are also combustible, they're vulnerable to ignition, and they are ultimately part of the overall fuel load for wildfire as well. So what we have here is a map of wildfire ignitions that took place over a 20-year span. This map was created by collecting all of our fire agencies' records across the state and mapping those wildland fires. These are wildland fires, not structure fires. So there are a couple of things to point out here. The first is fires are being ignited on both windward and leeward sides on every single island in the state. Every red dot that you see on the map is a wildfire that required a suppression response by our fire agencies, and every light turquoise area is a burn scar from a large fire. We can see that wildfires are frequently larger on leeward sides because those areas tend to be drier, but under dry conditions, anywhere can burn. So again, we need ignitions and fuels to have wildfires, and we have people and therefore ignitions, as well as fuel, both as vegetation and buildings on all sides of the island. So at that point, the greatest risk factor influencing wildfire risk is how dry the vegetation is at any given time, as well as wind. So to better understand all the parts and pieces of what's happening with wildland urban fires, it helps to see how they fit together. And this is the story in its most basic form. So Hawaii and the Pacific Islands are burning, and 99% of that is because of human-caused ignitions from things like campfires, lawn equipment, vehicles, fireworks. Only a very small portion is arson. And when those sparks meet up with unmanaged vegetation, the fire can spread and it leads to impacts on our built environment. So our current reality is that wildfires occur regularly in Hawaii, but that can happen without disastrous loss in the built environment. And there are things that are within our control that greatly impact whether or not wildfires spread to our buildings and how they spread once they're there. And so that's what we want to be diving into today to talk about how to reduce risk around our homes and neighborhoods. And this is not just a job for firefighters. Firefighters do a great job of putting out fires, but they are the last resort. When they show up, everything else has already gone wrong. There's not a firefighting force in the world that can contain an extreme wildland urban fire once it reaches a certain extent. And so we really want to emphasize that, again, it takes everyone to protect our lands, our waters, and our people from wildfire. And the thing that we always like to point out, though, is that this is actually pretty good news. It's not like other natural disasters where we don't have a lot of control over whether they happen or where and how intensely they affect us. So everyone can help prevent accidental fire ignitions, manage the vegetation in your yard and around your neighborhoods, and have your family and your property prepared to and ready to better resist and survive any fires that do come close. So you get the most safety and protection when you take proactive actions well before any wildfire event occurs. And you're beginning that by attending today already. Sorry. And so that's why we're all here now, right? To learn the detailed strategies for those proactive actions that you can take. And it's using the principles that we set forth in this Hawaii specific version of the Ready, Set, Go program. The QR code on the screen will take you to the online version, and we'll also put a link in the chat. You can also always find it linked on our website as well, hwmo.org. And so this information, it is based on a lot of hard-earned lessons that are from very destructive fires during which a high number of fatalities have occurred when people evacuated too late. They got caught in smoke and fire-filled roads and traffic, and we have seen that this is a very real issue for us in Hawaii. What you learned today covers the entire timeline from before the fire season starts, which is ready, through hazardous conditions, that's set, and up to a fire event if that should happen, which is the go. And this is also you can maximize your chances for safety for your home, for your yard, and most importantly, your family and your neighbors. And so first up in Ready, Set, Go is being ready for wildfire. And you will notice that ready is the longest portion of today's presentation. So to get us going with the ready section, I will pass it off to Harriet.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Really appreciate that. So first I want to focus on the science, the how and the why homes and communities burn during a wildland urban fire. And I want to start with the fire triangle itself. It's really straightforward and something you are likely familiar with already. A fire starts when we have three things: oxygen, heat, and fuel. And the key here is that all three components must be present at any one time, or else combustion will not occur, or it will not sustain itself. Now, oxygen in these instances is typically wind. Not much we can do about that other than be aware. The other two components are heat, that's our ignition source, what starts the fire, and fuel, and that's essentially what can burn. So as soon as you remove one of those components, combustion cannot occur. No ignition, no fire. No fuel, no fire. We can do a lot to prevent ignitions. And with 99% of wildland fires or wildfires in Hawaii being human caused, education is a key and huge component to prevention. But knowing we cannot control for all situations, the focus of today's talk will be on the fuel, because as you can see, if you have a spark, but there's nothing to burn, there's going to be no fire. Now, fuels can be any materials that are combustible, including vegetation in our wildland and in our neighborhoods. Fuel can be unmanaged lands next to our communities. It can be our homes, our sheds, garages, ohana units. Fuel can be the furniture in your lanai. It could be the dead leaves and grasses next to your home siding or in the gutters. Fuel could be the outside dog bed, the wooden broom perched next to the back door. And for myself, it's the pile of wooden sticks my little one loves to collect. But a final point we want to make when it comes to fuel is that not all fuels is equal. So the characteristics of fuel has a big effect on fire behavior. Dry grasses produce a flashy fire that burns quickly and does not generate much heat. A home, on the other hand, burns for hours and generates lots of heat. So that's how fire starts and what it needs to be sustained. But how does it spread? Well, no matter if we're talking about a wildland fire or an urban fire, we know that fire spreads in one of three ways. First, fire can spread from direct contact with flames. Second, fires can ignite from radiant heat. Radiant heat is where we have air that is superheated from fire and comes into contact with something that has a lower heat tolerance. In that instance, there's no spark needed, just the heat. Finally, and this is the most common cause of fire spread, ember ignition. If you're not familiar with the term embers, embers are the burning bits of vegetation or other material carried by wind that can start fires if they land on combustible fuel. Embers are carried by the wind and can be carried huge distances, in many cases, many, many miles ahead of the fire itself. With embers causing 90% of structures to burn during a wildland urban fire, we need to ensure our homes and our yards are ember resistant. Even those homes that seem far away from the wildfire front need to be ember aware. This means that the area around our homes and structures need to be free from fuel that can be ignited by embers. And we have research to back up how best to protect our homes from ember ignition. Here, I'm giving away the punchline to a video I'm about to play, but it's a really short one, and I just want to make sure you understand what's going on before I play it. This video is from the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. And they have a simulator where they can conduct highly realistic wildfire simulations to explore how ember storms ignite structures. And what we're going to see is a two-story duplex and how it responds to this ember storm. Note, this video doesn't have any volume, so let's get to the video. And what we're going to see is that we're going to have a home on the left-hand side. Watch for that initial ignition from some embers landing on some small woody shrubs. And that wood mulch next to the home. The house has some wood siding, and now this smaller fire has spread to the home, igniting the siding. And then we saw those flames increasing in size and the fire spreading to the eaves. Now, on the right-hand side, what we're seeing is we have a home that has an area around it free from debris and is built from ember-resistant materials. After 10-minute exposure of embers, the home on the left was ablaze, whilst the one on the right was not. The takeaway here is no fuel, no fire. And this research is backed up by real life situations showing us homes can and do survive. This picture shows a home that survived a wildland urban fire that occurred in Laguna Beach in 1993. Often such a home as this is labeled a miracle home. We hear this phrase over and over, and I personally do not find it helpful. Indeed, I find it misleading. Because I will also point out that in this picture, take a look, there are many miracle trees. And I jest, but what I mean to emphasize is these trees did not meet the requirements for combustion, nor did that home. And that's why being ready is so important to give yourself the greatest chance of being that miracle home. So how do we get our homes ready? We will start with 6 FireWise concepts. And in theory, they could be thought of as 6 separate principles. In practice, we should really kind of think of these as a systems approach, with an overarching principle of own your zones being supported by the other concepts. How these concepts work together will be covered by Cassandra, but for now, I want to focus on the own your zones. So what do we mean by own your zones? The idea of the home ignition zones came about after years of research, similar to what we saw in that previous video, alongside investigations of homes that burned during wildland urban fires. So the area closest to the home or structure, shown by the red line on the diagram, is called the immediate zone. This covers the 0 to 5 feet area away from your home and say lanai or anything else attached to your home. Science tells us that this 0 to 5 foot zone is the most vulnerable area of your home to embers. This is the area you should focus on first when getting your home ready for a wildfire. This is also the zone where you want non-combustible materials to be used. Next out from there, we have the intermediate zone. That's depicted by the orange line, which stretches from 5 to 30 feet from the structure. In this zone, we should be focusing on creating fuel breaks and reducing fire intensity by minimizing vegetation and ladder fuels, aiming to prevent fire spread to the home. Further out from that, from 30 feet to 100 feet and beyond, we have the extended zone indicated by the green line in this diagram. The focus here for landscaping is not so much eliminating fire, but it's more on interrupting a fire's path and keeping the flames of any advancing fire small and close to the ground. The key takeaway is you should start mitigation efforts close to the home and work your way out. The work on the perimeter of your home and lanai will have, if you have one at least, that's going to have the greatest impact for you. And if no combustion can occur in that 0 to 5 foot area around your home, then your home stands a better chance of surviving. So own your zones is key for protecting your zone from a wildland urban fire. When we own our zones, we also have to be aware of these other supporting concepts. And these include hardening your home. So harden your home refers to making your home more resistant to wildfire damage. It involves using non-combustible material, carefully considered designs to reduce the risk of embers and flames igniting your home. It's great if this is done when it's constructed, and cheaper in the long run when it's done up front, but retrofitting is also an option. One example might be replacing single-paned windows with dual-pane tempered glass. It's also maintenance, ensuring your roof, the most vulnerable part of your home and exterior wall, is well maintained, filling up any cracks and checking your screens and vents. We also need to be ember aware. We know embers can only start a fire where there is fuel. No fuel, no fire. When we are ember aware, we are mindful to keep combustible fuels away from the home. But we are also aware that during an ember storm, winds can push embers into all sorts of places. So you also need to prevent embers from entering your home through small cracks and vents that could cause it to burn from the inside out. Next, we want to think lean, clean, and green. During a wildland fire, plants around the home can act as fuel for fire. So we want to reduce those hazards in the following way. We want to make the yard lean by limiting the amount of vegetation, flammable vegetation. We want to allow for space between and under shrubs. And we want to allow space between any tree canopy and your home. When I talk about clean, that refers to removing any dead or dying leaves, debris, and other combustible materials in the yard. And finally, green. Try and keep your plants within your yard as hydrated as possible and well irrigated. Thinking about a well irrigated green belt is great. And you might also consider planting native drought tolerant vegetation. Now for build a buffer. What's a buffer? Well, a buffer is any space that can reduce the risk of fire spreading or slow the spread of a fire, ideally halting a fire from reaching a home. A buffer can protect a home from igniting due to direct flame or radiant heat. Buffers can also provide access for firefighters to provide suppression efforts. Examples of buffers include sidewalks, driveways, stone mulch, rock walls, and fire-escaped yards. And finally, the last concept, plant pono, by which we mean choosing the right plant for the right place with the right care. Native drought-tolerant plants are ideal. Planting trees away from the home is good practice, not just for wildfire, but also for your foundations. And here are two resources that I personally recommend. The first is the Pacific Fire Exchange. That's the science arm of our organization. More information on that can be found at pacificfireexchange.org. And the Plant Pono website, which has a really great, easy to use search engine. I've used it a lot myself, plantpono.org. And I will say of all the Firewise concepts, Plant Pono is where I get the most joy from working in my own yard, removing invasive fire-prone halikua, fountain grass, and lantana, and exploring native varieties such as pahinahina, ilima papa, a'ali'i, ihi, and uhaloa. So now I'm going to hand over to Cassandra, who's going to actually walk you through some examples of these concepts working together in and around your home.
Thanks so much, Harriet, for introducing those concepts for us. And now let's take a look in greater detail how taking small actions can drastically reduce your home's ignition vulnerability. We'll start in the immediate zone of the 0 to 5 foot range and discuss home hardening techniques that can greatly increase your home's chances of withstanding ember ignitions. When evaluating a home's vulnerabilities, you start from the top and move down. So starting with the roof, roofs are the most vulnerable part of a home because of the large surface area where embers can accumulate and ignite, especially if they're plant debris and the roof is not Class A rated. Plant material and or embers can collect where roof lines meet or under gaps and cracks in the shingles. Also, debris can accumulate under solar panels and skylights. Next, moving down the house, we're going to take a look at the gutters. Gutters can collect dry leaves, pine needles, and other plant material. It's recommended to place gutter guards or screens to prevent this debris accumulation, and then therefore reducing the risk of ember combustion in the dry, dead plant material. The next part of the house structure is to look at the eaves. Open eaves can allow for embers to gather underneath them and ignite exposed wood or other combustible material like bird nests. Enclosing open eaves or covering gaps with fire-resistant sealant is recommended. Vents in eaves are particularly vulnerable to ember entry, so be sure to screen all vent openings on rooftops, attic spaces, gable ends, exterior walls with 1/8 inch metal mesh. This is one of the key things that you can do to prevent embers from actually getting into your home. Plants or combustible storage near the windows can be ignited as well from embers and generate heat that can break glass or melt combustible frames. So we also recommend removing vegetation located below the windows because depending on the plant characteristics, flames can reach up to 3 feet in height. Another key consideration when doing home hardening is that combustible fencing material can ignite very easily. And if it's attached to a structure, it can carry fire like a wick right to the home. So therefore, you want to consider replacing any fencing connected to your home with non-combustible material. Now let's move on to the recommended actions to take in the 0 to 5 foot area, extending outwards from the home. So the 0 to 5 foot zone, as Harriet was mentioning, is the most critical zone to maintain to prevent ember ignitions. And this is where we want to remove all combustible material from around our home, whether it's plants, mulch, trash, cardboard, recycling, all the stuff. We just don't want to keep anything close up to our home within this range. And this also not so much in Hawaii, but includes firewood, of course, for those up Mauka. And that's a common one we see where folks stack firewood next to the home on the continent. So just be mindful of that. Again, you want to clear any debris from roofs and gutters. We're talking about roofs and gutters again, because these are, again, critical infrastructure points. And in addition to these points, we also want to ensure all crawl spaces and underneath our decks are clear of all debris as well. Clear propane tanks of plant material is a good practice too. If fire does occur, place all flammable materials like furniture cushions and wicker items in the home and close the doors and windows very tightly. You want to make sure the house is completely sealed before you do leave. And if you have a barbecue on the lanai and there is a fire event nearby and you may have to evacuate, if possible, move that grill farther away from the structure so it can ignite. Additionally, in the immediate zone of 0 to 5 feet, a tool you can use is landscaping or hardscaping with non-combustible materials. We recommend gravel, pavers, concrete, and then you can build a buffer to influence and decrease that fire spread behavior. You do not want to use wood chips or mulch near the home. Plant pono in this HIZ by selecting non-woody plants with minimal leaf litter and that are easily maintained with minimal water. Another landscape technique also referred to as xeriscaping. Now let's talk about what can be done in the intermediate HIZ of 5 to 30 feet, where the aim here is to slow down and reduce that wildfire and to prevent it from reaching the home. As previously mentioned, the aim again is maintenance and lean, clean, and green. You're going to hear that a couple times in this presentation, but it's really a key component to what we do to mitigate. In terms of tree maintenance, homeowners want to remove any branches that overhang their roof line and remove all dry, dead, and overgrown material that hangs off trees. It's recommended to have tree canopies at least 10 feet away from your home structure. You also want to maintain brush and shrubs by ensuring they have minimal dead or overgrown material. You want to keep your grass mowed to 4 inches and avoid using power tools or equipment on hot, windy days because that equipment can spark a fire. In the intermediate zone, you also want to remove any ladder fuels such as low-hanging branches, again, shrubs, and climbing plants that can potentially carry fire up into the trees. Removing limbs and branches of trees to a height of 6 to 10 feet from the ground is recommended to prevent that fire spread. Ideally, you want to space trees to a minimum of 18 feet between crowns in this zone. As Harriet mentioned earlier regarding the plant pono concept, you want to ensure you're selecting plants that don't increase fire potential, but rather offer some fire resistance due to the plant chemistry and characteristics. More key actions that can be done in the 5 to 30 foot zone include creating buffers and spaces with walls and fences made of stone, concrete, metal, or other fire resistant materials such as cement fiberboards. A rock catchment on your landscape not only breaks up fuel continuity, but it also creates an area where windblown embers can get caught, which can help keep them from reaching the immediate zone of 0 to 5 feet. A green break can also slow or stop the spread of fire. As the name implies, this break includes living vegetation as long as it's carefully selected and properly maintained. It's about finding a balance between a healthy landscape and minimizing that fire risk. Regarding first responders and fire suppression efforts, you want to make sure there's adequate clearance of 14 feet. And also you want to ensure that your address is visible from the street for any emergency personnel as well. Now moving into the extended zone, which is 30 to 100 feet or more from the home. The goal here, again, we're interrupting that fire spread by reducing the fuel load and keeping flames low in intensity. To reduce that fire spread, we create spaces between trees and shrubs, just like in the 5 to 30 foot area. You want to prune low-hanging branches to prevent fire from climbing into the tree canopies again, and dispose of any heavy accumulation of ground litter or debris. Keep maintenance. Remove all the dead plant material and tree material from your property. You also want to make sure there's no little trees coming up in between big mature trees. And in this area, tree canopies should be 12 feet apart, or excuse me, in the 30 to 60 foot area, trees should be spaced 12 feet apart, and beyond that, 6 feet apart is appropriate. You also really want to ensure areas around sheds, ohanas are clear of vegetation and debris. And now that we've talked about how to prepare your home and property, I'm going to hand it back over to Ashley to talk us through getting yourself and your family ready to evacuate.
So this is the final part of the Ready section of the Ready Set Go program, evacuation planning, getting yourself and your family ready to go. And to help those, if you don't have an evacuation plan in place yet, we do have a template inside of the Hawaii Ready Set Go handbook. You and your family can use that as your evacuation plan so that it is in writing and on paper. And after you've thought it through, you put it down on paper. It's just a good practice to keep the plan somewhere handy and accessible. Places like tape on your safe or inside, or not inside, on your refrigerator, inside your go bag, places like that. Just somewhere obvious, easily accessible where you will remember it in case of an emergency. And evacuation planning includes developing the plan, as well as making sure that the whole family is involved and everyone is aware of what's going to happen in case of a wildfire event. And practicing it ahead of time is a super important part of being prepared for wildfire as well. Planning and practicing your evacuation ahead of time will help enable you to evacuate as early and as efficiently as possible when a real emergency arises, and that's when your safety depends on it. So again, this is all done in advance. Use your Ready, Set, Go to plan, practice that plan, and review it yearly. And I really want to stress that practicing and reviewing yearly again, because a plan you made 5 years ago that you haven't thought about since is not likely to do you much good. It could be outdated. Maybe you don't even remember where you put it. Maybe evacuation routes have changed, all things like this. And when you're making and reviewing those plans yearly, you also want to make sure that you have up-to-date scans of important documents and photos, things like insurance, identification, financial and medical documents. And you also want to plan for those who need assistance and pets in your household and around in your neighborhood, your neighbors that might need assistance. Pets, chat with your vet about what to pack for your pet. If you are going to plan to create an animal in evacuation, practice that even more often so you aren't trying to drag a cat out from under the bed and shove it unwillingly into a crate during a potentially already high stress event for both you and for them. And so everything for your pets and the rest of your family, that should all be going in your go bag. And you should be taking that with you when you practice and when you check your evacuations. So as far as checking your evacuations, your evacuation routes. School days could give you an idea of where bottlenecks could occur. So you want to be familiar with alternative routes and not just the ones that you travel every day. And that can help, especially during an emergency if there is thick smoke and limited visibility. So again, plan and practice, 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 and finally sign up for alerts. And on that topic, we do strongly encourage you to sign up for your county's emergency management or civil defense alerts. Those are the agencies that are going to be coordinating, issuing directives, and giving information in an emergency. And the QR codes on screen will take you to the site. We'll also drop some links in the chat box. And just to note, the All Islands link does have a section that says it's for Oahu, but they recently updated their system and it's outdated on the All Islands link. So Oahu specifically, please use the Oahu specific QR code. And now that we've covered what you do to get ready, what you want to have done well before any hazardous conditions occur, we will move on to set.
Thanks so much, Ashley. So the focus of being set is maintaining situational awareness. And what we mean by that is paying attention to what is happening around you. During the ready portion, we already signed up for alerts. Now we need to be sure to pay attention to them. Read them, be familiar with the language, locations referred to them. Use both your gut and official reliable information to know what is going on. But it goes beyond alerts. There are plenty of indicators if you look around you that let you know when the fire hazard is high. In the fire world, we call this situational awareness. So when it comes to situational awareness for wildfires, there is first the awareness of what is going on throughout the weeks and months of the year, watching for drought conditions. We can watch the state and color of the vegetation. We can oftentimes see with our own eyes the vegetation is drying out. We see the green grass turn yellow, turn brown, and then gray, which is really worrying. Let that alert you to the increased fire hazard. We should also be mindful of current weather conditions. Is it calm and still, or are the winds extra ferocious? It's these conditions where we are even more mindful of everything we discussed in the ready portion, checking and doing maintenance on and around our homes and yards, focusing especially on the 0 to 5 immediate zone, not doing anything to cause sparks. We want to be maintaining that situational awareness. And having situational awareness being set also applies when there is a fire anywhere near you or in your general vicinity. During a fire and throughout the day, winds change directions. We know this. Don't assume that because a fire or smoke looks far away, or because the wind is blowing the fire away from your neighborhood, it will remain that way. Stay alert, be aware, and be hyper vigilant about the status of the fire. A fire at first can look to be blowing uphill and away from a residential area, but then if winds change, which could be minutes or hours or days, the fire and smoke can travel in the opposite direction, directly threatening lives and homes in that area. Fires, as we know, they can travel extremely fast and they can change directions often. Staying vigilant and observant and tracking it with your own sensors through formal emergency notifications will help you and your family be prepared. Remember, fires don't just happen from direct flame contact, but from embers that can travel miles. For this reason, a fire that occurs several miles away is still a threat you need to be paying close attention to. Finally, we need to take the time now when things are a little calmer to prepare to leave. So grab that pre-made plan and checklist, and if it's appropriate, start working through it. I have my Ready, Set, Go checklist from my Ready, Set, Go booklet up on the wall in my kitchen. I don't trust myself to think clearly in such a situation. So I love this pre-made list. I ripped it out, scribbled on it, personalized it, and then taped it to the wall so I can grab it when the time comes. Now, I can't emphasize this enough. Evacuating early is always recommended. However, depending on the circumstances, if you have time, maintaining that situational awareness, you may alert family and neighbors, those who might need more time evacuating. You may also take the time now to make sure your home is ready and your yard is ready. By this, I mean close any windows, turn off any sprinklers, And on the topic of sprinklers, we ask you to turn them off, and that's to ensure there's water for fire suppression needs. Trust me, the fire department knows where that water is needed most, and they need to be able to rely on it being there. Bring inside any combustible items from your lanai, including cushions, doormats, children's toys, in my case, forgotten sticks, maybe dogs' things. And I will know each home and family are unique, which is why this plan and checklist needs to be made in advance. Finally, let's make sure that the go bag really is ready and maybe go put it in the car now. Whilst it's nice and calm, just go put it in the car. As I said, during this time, maintain situational awareness. And for myself, my ultimate list when it comes down to it, and I joke about it, but honestly, it's daughter, dog, documents, drugs, by that I mean medicine, and dad, pretty much in that order. Daughter, dog, documents, drugs, dad. And I figure my husband can figure it out for himself, but I have that in my mind. I'm set. I'm not evacuating yet, but I'm just keeping that situational awareness going on. And that leads us to our final section, go. And I'm going to hand it over to Cassandra.
Mahalo, Harriet. So for the go component of the ready set, the main piece is being ready to leave your home as early as possible. I know we've said this a few times already, but we're going to say it a couple more times. This is just a really important piece that we try to emphasize. You want to plan to have your go bag ready, belongings gathered in advance, and there is that recommended emergency list in the RSG guide that you can use to build that bag. It's also recommended to practice your family's evacuation plan during a non-emergency. So when you have a real evacuation order, you are more prepared. It's best to have several travel routes planned out and to think through how you're going to navigate closed roads or traffic, especially in neighborhoods with one way in or out, which is the case here in Hawaii for many of our communities. And this is another reason it's really important to leave early to avoid traffic congestion and the added stress that that can bring to an already stressful situation. Along with having a pre-planned evacuation route, plan out where you're going to go and where you're going to meet your family. You want to have evacuation location options and select places that are low risk, like a friends or relatives located outside of the evacuation area. It's also a good idea to have a backup plan in case you can't get to your first choice meeting spot. And to wrap up the go portion of the Ready, Set, Go program, I'm going to show you a video of a driver. This is they're trying to evacuate from an ember storm. This took place in 2016 in Alberta, Canada. And this video demonstrates that it's much better to evacuate early, to keep the roads as clear as possible for emergency responders, and to also get off the roads, not be on the roads when it's chaotic like this. You'll kind of see in this video, the guys kind of almost hit each other as they're trying to go around these engulfed trees here. And this is really just not a fun situation or a safe situation. So again, why we keep telling people you want to be paying attention to the weather conditions. You've already been using your situational awareness to track what's happening throughout the day. And then you can use your own best judgment to leave before that official evacuation order is given. You don't want to wait for the police or the fire department to come knock on your door and tell you you have 1 minute to get out of your house. You want to be long gone before that, if possible. And the hope is that you're leaving your home as well prepared as possible. And so you are leaving with that peace of mind that you did the mitigation prep work and the evacuation planning prior to the wildfire event.
Thanks, Cassandra. So that concludes the go portion of the presentation. And hopefully by now you have a copy of this. But if you haven't got a copy of our Ready, Set, Go guide, then do please get your phones out, scan the QR code. You can also request a hard copy of the guide by reaching out to us at HWMO. We're going to put contact details at the end. And please do pass this guide along. Friends, neighbors, colleagues, take it to your workplace, take it to the next community meeting or church group meeting or whatever you're doing. Book club, it's a really fantastic resource that we want out in the community and we want people to be reading and listening to. And if you need it, we also have this handy one-page summary of the Ready, Set, Go principles. You are more than welcome to add this to notice boards, share with community groups, your workplace. It's just a great summary to add into newsletters as well. And please know that HWMO's support for wildfire efforts go beyond today's webinar. So if you're interested, HWMO also provides a free home assessment program. This is a review of the vulnerability of your own house and landscape to wildfire and ember ignition. They are done by trained community members and take about 30 minutes to an hour to complete. It's a really fantastic program. I myself had one back on my home a few years back, and it was great. It pointed out things that I hadn't thought about before. It was really wonderful. And this program is provided in areas where we have volunteer assessors. For more information on this and to sign up, please visit hwmo.org/home-assessments. But to add, if we do not have an assessor available and demand is high, we will still try and get an assessor out to you. Might need to be patient, so we appreciate your understanding. Better yet, get a few homes together in your community to sign up. That way, our staff and volunteers can focus our efforts on in one go. This program focuses on individual homes and yards, but after many of the recent wildland urban fires, we know all too well the efforts also need to be on the community level. And so for here, I'm going to just take a minute and hand over to Cassandra, who can talk more about the Firewise program.
So we covered what we can do to protect our homes within the first 100 feet. What we haven't covered yet is what happens if your ignition zones overlap with your neighbors, which is often the case, especially here in Hawaii. And now we have to work with our neighbors. And this is where the Firewise program comes into play. It's a framework for communities to come together to address their shared wildfire hazards. It's a recognition program that includes a national catalog of over 2,000 sites. For Firewise, HWMO partners with all the county fire departments, the state forestry agency, and also works very closely with volunteer community leaders. Firewise was designed to help educate residential neighborhoods about wildfire safety and provides that framework and resources to help guide community wildfire reduction actions. A benefit, the coolest part, I think, to being a part of this program is it connects you with the greater Firewise network. And that means you have access to quarterly meetings, a Google Drive with lots of resources, and also that Firewise email network that allows sites to share lessons learned, challenges, and opportunities. Firewise has really grown in the past couple of years. We have 31 recognized neighborhoods to date in Hawaii. On Hawaii Island, there's 19. Maui, there's 7 sites, one on Molokai. Oahu has 4. And we have 15 plus pending and emerging communities in Hawaii right now on all the different islands. So we're excited to see the program grow even more in the coming months.
And now that you know about the Firewise program, it's a good time to mention that we are currently in Wildfire Community Preparedness Month. And across Hawaii, our Firewise communities are already leading the way in wildfire preparedness. They are organizing green waste dumpsters, home ignition zone cleanup days. They're educating their neighbors. And just again, everyone has a role to play in reducing wildfire risk. And these projects that our Firewise communities are doing are real, they're on the ground actions that are making a difference. And we just want to mahalo all of you if you are here from a Firewise community who are a part of that effort. And we can't wait to see how all of these projects turn out. These efforts really inspire all of us. And we will also be highlighting some of them on our social media throughout the month if you follow us there. So again, we have a lot of additional resources, and to wrap up, just one more of those is the annual Wildfire Drought Lookout campaign. We partner in this effort with over 36 government agencies and other supporting organizations, and it's a recurring effort to raise awareness and encourage greater preparedness. It's all about reminding folks to look out for dry conditions, high winds, look out for risky activities that can spark wildfires. And it's also about looking out for each other, right? So share your tips, check in on your neighbors, and just support community efforts to prepare and to stay safe.
Thanks, Ashley. I am noticing the time. We're early, which is perfect. We might be able to give folks a few minutes back of their time. Um, and we will still stick around even after this is our last slide, but we're not going to go anywhere. We'll stick around if there's questions that are unanswered in the Q&A, or I think Devin might be able to take you off mute if you raise your hand. But with that, I really do want to mahalo each of you for joining us today and really for taking this important step. Maybe for some of you, it might be the first important step toward protecting our ohanas, our homes, and our communities from fire. Your presence here, I think I mentioned there's probably about 100 registrants for tonight. It shows that we all care about this stuff and that we're ready to be proactive. And that really matters. It truly is going to take all of us to build a more wildfire resilient, more wildfire adapted Hawaii. So a big heartfelt mahalo as well to my incredible Hawaii Wildfire team. We had Ashley, Cassandra, and Harriet front and center. We also had Dana and Devin behind the scenes. Thank you, Dana. I see you answering some Q&A right now. But thank you so much for helping to bring this webinar to life and for the work you do every day to support our communities across our islands. Before you go, a small request, please, when you leave the meeting, take a moment to complete the short survey that's going to pop up when you leave. Your feedback, it really does help us improve and be able to better serve you. Reminder, hawaiiwildfire.org. We've got tons of helpful resources on our website, so please visit or reach out to us. Again, subscribe to our newsletter or follow us on social media if you want to stay up to date on wildfire happenings, upcoming events, or helpful tools that you can use. Well, finally, from all of us at Hawaii Wildfire, mahalo again for your time, your attention, your commitment to a wildfire-ready Hawaii. Please stay safe. Please stay connected to us. And we really hope to see you again soon. Again, we will stick around for a few more minutes just in case there's some questions that have gone unanswered or if Devin can figure out how to unmute you. But for those that have to leave, have a wonderful evening and ahui ho. So I think what we can do, you guys, is let folks out, and then maybe we can pull up the Q&A and Dana, I don't know if you had a chance to look at any of the questions, but if there were some that maybe you could address, or I can pull it up and let folks know what questions we did have.
We also had one that came in by email.
Okay, yeah, maybe drop it in the Q&A.
I'm not sure if I can. Let me have a look. Doesn't let me ask. So I'll ask it verbally, maybe to the team here. So what is the responsibility of a landowner on ag land to keep the fire hazard under control, such as guinea grass that is close to existing structures?
Good question. We get that one a lot. Does anybody on the team want to take it, or do you want me to go for it? Dana, I see you're coming off mute.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a tough one to answer because we all have kuleana, but you have to take that step to take action. So it's up to that landowner to take action. And unless we get the tougher fire codes to address that kind of situation, and there's enough firefighting staff to address and cite the landowners if they're not in compliance, I don't think we're going to see it. So I think the answer to this one is more like on the political level to have action happening and to provide firefighters. Our fire department is always saying we don't have enough staff to go and enforce all the things that we could enforce. So it's a larger situation than just, having them take responsibility for what's happening on their own land. But I always try to tell people if you have that situation where it could be the neighbor, right? So everyone says, hey, what about my neighbor? Their tree is growing over my property. But I always try to let people focus inward instead of outward. Do your part first, and then hopefully that'll set an example for everyone else to do their part. And then invite these large landowners to your board meetings, if you have one, HOA meetings, community meetings. Hopefully they show up so you can address the situation with them, and invite your politicians too, and your fire department.
Good. Thank you, Dana. Sorry, I'm typing away here. And another thing you always say, Dana, that hits home for me is if you own the fuel, you own the fire. And that's true for homeowners, farmers, large landowners, because fuel includes both vegetation and structures. So we all have a kuleana. Anything
Yes.
else in the Q&A we want to look at? We still have participants on the webinar. I
wanted to just say one quick thing. If you live on Maui, we're going to be there, myself and Shelly, my wife, to do some home assessments next weekend from the 16th through the 19th. So go ahead and send your request for a free home assessment through the link that we shared. And if we can fit you in, we'll fit you in.
And if your community name is not on the request form, no worries. There's an option for like other, maybe that's what it is. And you can just click that and Dana will see the request and try to schedule something for you when he's over there. We had a propane tank question, which does come up quite frequently. Do you want to address that, Dana? In the event of a fire,
Sure.
what would you recommend that a homeowner do?
Well, let's start with the different sizes of propane tanks. So there's the little 5-gallon ones that you use for your barbecue. And if you have them next to the home, you really want to remove them and put them out towards the beyond the intermediate zone, which is the 5 to 30 feet zone. So at least 10 feet, if more if you can do it, if you have the space. And then you have the ones that are a little larger, maybe I want to say 50 gallons, that are right next to the house. And so you want to make sure those are secure. So if you just have them laying on a cement pad or even on the dirt, that's fine. But you want to make sure they're secured to the structure so that they don't become ballistic in a fire in case there's a leak or something like that. And then they make the larger ones, which are like 120 something gallons. And so here's how it's a funny thing. We're talking about codes again, but the fire code for a large tank, if it's 125 gallons or more, you have to have that 10 feet away from the home and behind a barrier between the tank and your structure or your home. However, the gas company makes the tank 124 gallons, so they put it right next to the house. So if you're in that situation, if you can get the gas company to move the tank 10 feet away and then put it behind something like a rock wall or a metal fence or something like that between the structure and your home, it makes it much more safe for you in the situation where there might be a wildfire and it might be a leak, that sort of thing.
That's
But
helpful.
yeah, in general, clean around it. If it's the big tank that's next to your home, clean all the little grass and leaves, and we want to prevent it from, it's usually not going to explode or anything, but if there's too much fuel below, it may heat up the tank, and then you may get some gas coming out of the pressure valve, and that may ignite. So that's the danger there.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more question because I see it in the Q&A and it's a common one again. Is it wise to hose down the roof for yard before evacuating?
Yeah, well, talk to a lot of firefighters, they say no. just leave early as possible. I think I made a comment, if you can see flames or smell smoke, don't wait, evacuate.
Ooh, that's a
And
nice little
because you don't need to wait
phrase.
for the evacuation notice, right? So
Evacuate.
just go, and then now you know how to put together your go bag, and so be ready for the situation in case it happens. But in terms of shucks, what was I talking about? I lost my train of thought there. Oh, not watering the home. It also, if you do that, then it's taking away water pressure that the firefighters may need if they're trying to fight the fire. So, and it depends on your situation. I just visited Hawaiian Paradise Park last week, and near the volcano area. Oh, no, Fern Acres, I think, somewhere near the volcano area where they have a lot of catchment tanks. So they don't have public water, and so and a lot of them didn't know that you need a certain size connection for the firefighters to be able to use the catchment tank to fight fire at your home. So if you have catchment, make sure you call your local fire department, ask them how you can get the connection, the right size connection, and then if they'll be able to access water to fight fire if they have to respond to your home or your neighbor's home. And then also give them clearance. So Cassandra talked about 14 feet wide by 14 feet high clearance. So if you can provide that access, because most catchments are in the back of the home and they're going to respond in the front. So they need to get maybe a standpipe installed or something like that so they can get access to the water from the catchment.
Nice. Okay, well, we still have 22 participants that stuck with us, but for those that did stick with us, this Dana is one of our home assessors, and this is the kind of attention you get if you request a home assessment. It's somebody like Dana that comes to your house and walks the property with you and addresses all of the questions you have. So feel free, you can request one or you can reach out to us if you're part of a community and you want a webinar similar to this just for your neighborhoods, for your neighbors or your associations. Reach out to us. We're always available. And again, thank you so much for being here and showing your commitment and letting us be of service in supporting you in your efforts. With that, a hui ho, and we'll stay connected.